Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. We're here on Friday night to do the second episode in the third series of ranking the albums. So basically what this is about is my subscriber friend Ben gives me 4 albums from his vast collection, much bigger than my own, I might add. And I listen to the 4 of them, and then I rank them according to how I like them. So I'm going to do it a tiny bit different than the first 2 series. As you know, if you've seen the first episode, you know I've changed it a little bit. So now I'm going to give you the 4 albums that we're doing, and I will talk about them, and then I will rank them at the end instead of giving you them as how I rank them to begin with. So anyways, the 4 albums are House of Lords, their debut album; Petra, Back to the Rock from 2010; Fish's Virgil in the Wilderness of Mirrors. This, I believe, came out in 1990. And then Greg X Voltz, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Yeah, I think that's how I have it down here. Let me just make sure, because I don't want to script the guy's name. Yeah, Greg X Voltz, and the album's called River. The River is Rising. So, I listened to all 4 albums. None of them really had a great deal of impact with me, not initially, anyways. I found most of them were okay. They weren't bad. There's no bad ones here. They were okay, up to about, decent, good albums, and I rank them according to how I like them. So we'll talk a little bit about the 4 albums first. The first one, House of Lords, which was their debut album, has some nice drum and bass rhythm parts on the album, which I found kind of good, and are a little bit fast at times. The overall tempo of the album is upbeat. Lots of keyboards on this album, and some catchy riffs on this album as well. But I think it's primarily a commercial keyboard, guitar-driven album for the best way to describe it, I guess. Vocals are that classic glam rock style that you get. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing to distinguish it or anything, but not bad at all. The guitars are very rockish, heavy at times, but not overly. And they're, at points in times, I find the vocals a little bit on the White Snake sounding frame, but not nearly as good, but still fairly good. So that's for the House of Lords first album. The second album we're going to talk about that I was given was Petra. This is Back to the Rock. So this band is a Christian rock band. I think they're actually the first Christian rock band, or considered the first Christian rock band. Definitely a band that helped evolve that genre from what I've read. The vocals are clear, but got a classic rock-like sound to them. Poppy metal, I would say a little bit on the poppy, but a little metal as well. So they're not a pop album, but they're not a metal album. They got that little bit of both of those elements. There are some nice guitar riffing on this. The lyrics, of course, are very Christian-like. Keyboards are a little bit on the weak side. I didn't really care for the keyboards here. Not the way they were used, anyways. The next album is Fish's debut solo album, which is called Virgil in the Wilderness of Mirrors. Sorry, I want to say something wild, but it isn't that. This is more of a mainstream sound than his traditional albums that he came from off of Marillion. Got a little bit of a poppy feel to it. His vocals are typical Fish sounding. They're not, you know right away it's Fish. There's no confusion there. I did like the best song on the album I liked was State of Mind. It's a bit more like what I generally like from him, a little bit more of that proggy element, a little bit heavier than some of the other stuff. But overall, I found this album to be a little bit more commercial sounding, a little bit more poppy. But typical of Fish and Marillion, it usually takes me some listening to them for a period of time before it starts to either grow on me or, yeah, almost all their albums were like that. I didn't initially care for them. There were some elements I didn't like, but they grew on me, every single one of them. The ones that he played on from early, and they all have had the same reaction. I now have Fujili in the Waiting Its Turn in the playlist. I expect the same results as the first three. Okay, so the next album up is a Greg X Voltz album. The River is Rising. So to my understanding, and I might be wrong here, he was a member of Petra at some point. I don't know what his particular job was. I didn't go that far in depth about it, but he was a member of Petra, so I think there's a little bit more of that Christian element here, but I didn't hear anything to suggest there was, but maybe I'm wrong. It's got a heavy symphonic sound to the album at times. Some heavier guitar, catchy. This is one of the heavier of the four albums, I think. Vocals are strong, but not a little bit muddled, not as easy to hear as you might think. It's got a kind of a poppy, upbeat sound at times, and there's a fair bit of keyboards on this album, and they're, again, a little bit on the up-tempo side. So I listened to all four. So how I decided to rank these was based on, well, I'm going to do this the way I always do it. I don't know why I said it that way, but I'm going to tell you the least album first and then go up to the most album, or fourth to first. With of course, the first album will go on to the semifinals. So as I didn't find any of these particularly strong, I also didn't find any of them particularly weak. They're all fairly close in their ranking. The bottom two are probably a little less than the top two, but there's not much separating the first one from the second one or the third one from the fourth one. So the number 4 one was going to be Greg X Voltz. I didn't really care much for this album. I didn't dislike it. There were parts of it that I thought were kind of interesting, and the guitar was catchy at times too. So not a terrible album, but not an album I probably, if I saw it, maybe if it was $1 or $2, I might take it, but I'm not going to go out of my way for it. Of course, the next album up, and the number 3rd spot, was Petra's Back to the Rock. I've never been a huge fan of Christian rock, so both of these albums really didn't appeal to me greatly because of that. But there's also a bit of a metallic feel to this album, so I didn't mind it. It wasn't a terrible album. Had some good riffing at times, but overall, there wasn't a ton of stuff that was all that memorable. So hence the reason why it got 3rd. I think it was a little better of an album than the Greg X Voltz album, so that's why I put it ahead. The next 2 albums were a little bit of a notch, a little bit of a higher category. They were pretty much in the good to not bad albums here. So number 2 is going to be House of Lords. This is, of course, a glam rock album, and I've never been a huge fan of glam rock albums. There are some out there that I don't mind, but this one was actually a decent one. I think it was the instrumentation was better than I had originally thought it would be. They did have a little bit of that Whitesnake element to their music too, which I thought was good. I don't think it sounded anything like Whitesnake, but they're definitely in that same kind of genre feel there. Yeah. Not a bad album. Has an upturn for me. I didn't mind it, but it wasn't quite enough to beat the Fish album, so it's going to come in at 2, fairly handily winning the 2nd spot. And of course, that leaves Fish's Virgil once again in the Wilderness of Mirrors. The album cover was a little weird. I wanted to say that it was Marillion-like in appearance, but really it wasn't. But anyways, not a bad album. I enjoy Fish's vocals. I like his style of singing. Like I said, the album is good. I think the main reason I put this album at the top, even though I found it a little commercial sounding and a little poppy sounding, is because I think there's more of an upside on this album. for the pure fact that Fish wrote the lyrics and the music. So eventually I'm hoping I'll get the same kind of reaction that I got with the Marillion albums that he sang on and wrote, but there's a little bit of a different sound going on here, so it may not happen, it may or may not, but it was good enough to win this battle. So there you have it. Fish coming in at number 1 with his Virgil, and I keep forgetting it, Virgil in the Wilderness of Mirrors. Yes, I don't know why I can't get that in my head, but I think it's good enough to go on to the next round, and hopefully it'll get a little stronger. It's going to need to be stronger if it hopes to win the semifinals. Anyways, that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed the ranking of the albums for our second installment. We'll be back next Friday with another installment of this series. I hope you enjoyed this, and take care, and we will see you, well, we'll see you tomorrow for sure for the new album, for What's New. What's New will be good. And we're also doing, tomorrow we're also doing the new stuff that I purchased for the month. I think that will be interesting to listen to watch and listen to, as well as we've got the Sonus Umbra album, so we will be doing that for What's New. Been waiting for this album for a few weeks now. Happy to say that it came, and I'm ready to go with it. So we will see you then. So take care. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and leave your comments below, and the notification bell. Have a good evening. Take care, and goodbye.